outset, I am happy to inform you all that our Evening Degree College is celebrating its Golden Jubilee year. On behalf of our college, we congratulate all the stakeholders. I now request Sunil Kumar sir to play a small video of our college. Over to you, sir.
Sunil sir, audio is not coming.
Yes, sir. Repeating again. Same hಂಗೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
Jai Bhim.
Sunil?
Sir, trying, sir.
Sir, one moment, sir.
Sorry for the inconvenience. There was a technical issues in the internet. So now I request our beloved principal sir, Professor N.S. Satish sir, to welcome and introduce all the dignitaries to this international webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vanessa. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Happy evening to India, happy morning to Washington, USA. I take this opportunity to welcome you all for this international webinar in association with Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Foundation, Washington, USA. At the outset, I would like to introduce and welcome today's keynote speaker, Dr. Jeevan Kumar D, Honorary Professor, Karnataka State Rural Development and Panchayat Raj University, Gadag, India. Sir has more than 38 years of teaching experience in political science at Bangalore University. His areas of specializations are development politics and administration, Indian government and politics, and Gandhian studies. He was a Sandberg Fellow at Ramapo College, New Jersey, USA, Fulbright Fellow at United States, and a Fellow at Salzburg, Austria. He has published innumerable research articles in edited books, journals, and newspapers in national and international journals. He is currently a consultant to the Karnataka Regional Branch of Indian Institute of Public Administration, Bangalore, and trustee of Karnataka chapter of the Sarvodaya International Trust. He has assumed charge as honorary professor at Karnataka State Rural Development and Panchayat Raj University, Gadag, India. He is also visiting faculty at National Law School of India University, Bangalore. Sir, on behalf of Shesharupuram Educational Trust, I wholeheartedly welcome you for this webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks. I am happy to introduce today's team speaker, Srimati Karuna, Director, Gandhi Memorial Center, USA. Madam began her service and dedicated herself to both the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Foundation and Self Revelation Church of Absolute Monism in 1998. Both were founded by Swami Premananda of India, who came to America in 1928. She became director of Gandhi Memorial Center in 2006 and has devoted herself to presenting the ideas of life message of Mahatma Gandhiji and the spiritual and culture heritage of India. She also conducts regular services in Self-Revelation Church of Absolute Monism. The church follows the spiritual tradition of Swami Shankaracharya Advaita Vedanta with a totally non-sectarian philosophy. Throughout the year, she speaks at university schools, governmental and non-governmental organizations, as well as for various professional, social and religious groups that visit to Gandhi Memorial Center at USA. Madam, on behalf of Shesharupuram Education Trust, I welcome you for this webinar.
Namaste.
Thank you. I would like to introduce and welcome today's guest of honor, Padma Shri Dr. Prakash Baba Amte, Gandhian social activist. He was awarded the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Community Leadership in 2008 for his philanthropic works in form of the Lok Biradari Prakal amongst the Madhya Gonds in the Gadchiroli district of Maharashtra and neighboring states of Telangana and Madhya Pradesh. In November 2019, he was awarded with ICMR Lifetime Achievement Award by Bill Gates. He is also the recipient of Mother Teresa Award, Lokmanya Tilak Award, Godfrey Phillips Lifetime Achievement Award, Padma Shri from Government of India, Adivasi Sevak Award from Government of Maharashtra, and the Principality of Monaco issued postal stamp to honor Prakash and Mandakini Amte. Prakash Amte moved to Himalkas to start Lok Biradari Prakalp and lived with Madhya Gond for almost 20 years, performing emergency surgical procedures without electricity. The project transformed into the hospital as Lok Biradari Prakalp Davakhana and residential school as Lok Biradari Prakalp Ashram Shala and the orphan for injured wild animals as the Amtes Animal Park. The project provides healthcare about 40,000 individuals annually. Sir, on behalf of Shesharupuram Education Trust, I wholeheartedly welcome you for this webinar. I would like to introduce and welcome Dr. Udupi Krishna, President, Karnataka Gandhi Smaraka Nidhi and Honorary General Secretary, Shesharupuram Education Trust. Sir is a transformation leader with a rare blend of a technologist, educationist, social activist, and humanist. Sir is a recipient of Eminent Engineer Award and prestigious fellowships of the Institution of Engineering and Technology UK and World Academy of Productivity Science Canada. In recognition of his dedicated service to the nation, Dr. Krishna has been conferred with President's Gold Medal, the highest national award given for Red Cross humanitarian work of high order by the President of India. Sir, on behalf of Shesharupuram Uni Degree College, I welcome you and I request you to preside over this international webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks. I welcome all the office bearers and trustees of Shesharupuram Education Trust and all the principals of our sister institutions, other heads of the institution, conveners, volunteers, and all the participants who have registered across the globe. Now, I welcome Darappa Konnu, Program Coordinator, Sunil Kumar, IQSC Coordinator, and Vinay Sagar, convener, Gandhi Study Center of our college. And finally, I welcome our own teaching and administrative faculties to this webinar. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir, for welcome all. On behalf of all, I welcome our beloved principal, sir, to this international webinar. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
May I now request Dr. D. Jeevan Kumar, sir, Honorary Professor, Karnataka State Rural Development and Panchayat Raj University, Gadag, Karnataka, India, to enlighten us with his keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted to be in your midst this evening. I'm grateful to the principal of Seshadripuram Evening Degree College, Professor N.S. Atish, for inviting me to deliver the keynote address at this very important webinar. I know I'm in the presence of very distinguished people. Dr. Udepi Krishna, President, Karnataka Gandhi Smarak Nidhi and Honorary Secretary of Seshadripuram Education Trust, Padma Shri Dr. Prakash Amteji, and Srimati Karunaji. I'm delighted to be in the midst of all of you. Let me give you a brief outline of my presentation. Since the international webinar is titled Speaking of Gandhi, and the subtitle is Relevance of Gandhian Philosophy in the Present Context, I'll begin my presentation by looking at the context. I would like to look at the immediate context initially, and that is the pandemic, COVID-19. Then I would like to look at the larger context, and that is the concept of development. Then I'll move on to the dominant model of development. I'll spend a few minutes looking at this dominant model, which I would like to interrogate by posing 4 questions to this dominant model. And I'd like to place before you the answers that one gets from these 4 leading questions that one poses to the dominant model of development. Having done that, I'd like to also present before you the consequences of this dominant model of development. Once we are clear about this dominant model of development, the causes and the consequences, I then move to the main part of my presentation, which is the Gandhian vision of development. And I'd like to pose the same 4 questions that I posed to the dominant model of development to the Gandhian vision of development. And I'd like to place before you by comparing the answers that one gets to those 4 questions, to the 4 questions one poses to the dominant model, and how completely different answers you get to the same 4 questions you pose to the Gandhian vision of development. Once this is through, I'd like to make a few concluding observations and then conclude. I believe I have some 25 minutes before me. So let me quickly get down to the immediate context. The idea of development is said to stand like a ruin in the intellectual landscape. Those of us who are familiar with development politics, development administration, are never tired of pointing out what is wrong with development. And when one undertakes an intellectual exercise in critiquing this idea of development, the word ruin figures quite frequently in our discourse. Take a look at the ecological consequences of this model of development. You have all-round environmental degradation, global warming, human-induced climate change, and the latest manifestation of the ecological consequences of this model of development is what I'm referring to as recurring pandemics. I'm taking the help of a very recent report here, the WWF report, which is titled COVID-19, Urgent Call to Protect People and Nature. I'll highlight a few points that this report is telling us. People have increasingly encroached upon the natural world. As a consequence, what is happening? This is resulting in escalating levels of contact between humans, between livestock, between wildlife. Humans, livestock, wildlife, escalating levels of contact. Consequently, the frequency and number of new zoonotic diseases which originate in animals and which are transmitted to people have risen drastically over the last century. The world is already familiar with all these types of viruses, the Nipah virus, SARS, pandemic influenza H1N1 2009, the avian influenza with those two varieties, West Nile virus, Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus. These are just a few which are already with us, with which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. WWF is telling us that every year around 3 to 4 new zoonotic diseases are emerging. These new zoonotic diseases pose a grave threat to human health, causing deadly pandemics, the most recent one being COVID-19. We are all struggling to grapple with the devastating consequences of COVID-19. And while the world is doing this, WWF is calling for urgent global action to address the key drivers. They use this phrase drivers, and I've underlined this for you, which will cause future zoonotic disease outbreaks. WWF is telling us that the increased emergence of zoonotic diseases is linked to two widespread anthropogenic causes. And please note these words very carefully. The reason for the increasing emergence of these zoonotic diseases is because of, most importantly, two leading anthropogenic causes. Number one, unsustainable food systems, large-scale conversion of land for agriculture, and increasing interactions between wildlife, livestock, and humans. That's anthropogenic cause number one. And anthropogenic cause number two is about trade and consumption of high-risk wildlife species, and thereby increasing human exposure to animal pathogens. Now, this is the WWF diagnosis of the increasing emergence and spread of zoonotic diseases, and I'm flagging these 2 points before you. What is the WWF telling us further in this report? If the above causes are not adequately understood and addressed, the risk of a new zoonotic disease emerging in the future is higher than ever. And this new zoonotic disease has the potential to wreak even greater havoc on health, on economies, and on global security. The WWF is telling us that the COVID-19 crisis exemplifies the devastating costs of global pandemics, which have been graphically illustrated by WWF. The same forces driving an increased risk of pandemics are also exacerbating the current planetary emergency of nature loss and climate change. Cumulatively, the unending quest for development is putting the health of the planet and current and future generations of its inhabitants at grave risk. Now, this is my preamble to my talk to you this evening, where I'm saying that this unending quest for development is putting the health of planet Earth, as well as all of us, current generation and future generations, at grave risk. So how does one locate the causes behind this? WWF has given us two important reasons, but can we look at it from a wider framework? And I'm titling this the failure of the concept of development. To me, the above narrative stands as a testimony to the failure of development. In fact, the dominant notion of development to me stands delegitimized. And therefore, as some scholars are telling us, it is time to call for an end to development, to write the obituary of development, and to start on a new era, which they're describing as a post-development era. Some scholars are doing this, and literature on post-development, on post-development is available to us on the net and elsewhere. But I'm posing this in the form of a question: do we go along with these scholars, and do we jump to the conclusion that it's time to call for an end to development? I'm saying this may not be necessary once we realize the following three important points, and I'd like you to listen very carefully to these 3 points. Number one, that the mainstream or the dominant understanding of development is a Western idea. And let's understand this as point number one. Point number two, that this Western idea is rooted in a particular popular intellectual tradition. And point number three, that the flaws in this tradition are reflected in the idea or in the concept of development itself. Now, these 3 points I would like you to keep in mind, because as I go further, I'll be coming back to these 3 important points. This realization should lead us to a path of alternative development as visualized by visionaries like Mahatma Gandhi. And this is the main thrust of my presentation. Having done that, let me spend a few minutes looking at what I'm describing as the dominant model of development. This is the model of development that is currently with us. This is the model of development that has been universalized for quite some time now. This is the model of development which I'm describing as the dominant model of development. And I would like to pose 4 leading questions to this dominant model of development. The first leading question is, what is the purpose of development? And look at the answer that you get from the dominant model. Transformation of traditional agrarian, rural, backward economies and societies into, and mark these words, industrial, commodified, urban, modern, developed economies and societies. This is the answer that the dominant model gives to this first question, what is the purpose of development? And look at how these terms are devalued according to this model of development. Traditional is devalued, agrarian is devalued, rural is devalued, backward is devalued. Because they're devalued, they have to be converted, they have to be transformed, they have to be modernized, and look at the terms that they have used here. This is the answer that you get to question number 1. What is the purpose of development? My question number 2 to this dominant model is, what are your basic assumptions? And look at the answers that you get, both in this slide and the next slide. I'm placing before you the basic assumptions of the dominant model of development. Constant conversion of resources into goods and services. Constant conversion, goods and services, natural resources should not be left as they are. They have to be constantly converted into finished goods. They have to be constantly converted into services. How do you do this? Aided by sophisticated science and technology to make this conversion more productive, to make this conversion more efficient. Number 3, assumption number 3, endless production, endless consumption, endless competition, endless profit. Three basic assumptions here. And from my emphasis, you may be able to visualize what actually I'm driving at. Let me place before you three more basic assumptions of this dominant model of development. They believe that trade must be free and that trade must be carried on in a free market system. The dominant model believes that nature is meant to be dominated, nature is meant to be exploited. And if you ask the question, what is the governing philosophy of your model of development? The dominant model says anthropocentrism is the governing philosophy behind this model of development. So the second question, what are the basic assumptions? And the answers are already there before you. Let me move on to question number 3. You ask the dominant model of development, what is the process you would like to follow in order to do development? And look at the answers. Number 1, it's a top-down process. People at the top know how development should be done. So they tell everybody else down the line, we will tell you what is development. We will tell you how to do development. You listen to us and you follow what we are asking you to do. Number 2, reliance on Western knowledge, Western science, Western technology. Anything which is non-Western is not good enough because they are the repositories of development. They know how development ought to be done. If you ask them what kind of investments need to be done, look at the answer number 3 to the question, process of development, large investments in large projects. Effectively, the dominant model believes that big is beautiful. If you ask them a question about control, who controls this entire process? They say, we control because we have given you ideas, we have given you the technology, we have given you capital, and therefore control should be in our hands. So 4 quick answers to the question, process, what is the process of development that you're posing to the dominant model, and look at the answers that you get. Let's go to question number 4. How do you measure development and how does the dominant model answer this question? It's all through economics. It's all through economic activities. What kind of activities? Production of resources, distribution of resources, consumption of resources. That's how they would like to measure development. They'd also like to measure development in terms of industrial development, in terms of GNP, in terms of GDP, in terms of per capita income. Now, these are the economic indices by which the dominant model would like to measure development. So I've just run you through these four leading questions that I have posed to the dominant model of development, and these are the answers that one gets to these four leading questions. Now, based upon the answers, I have a list of limitations of the dominant model of development, and I will place this fairly long list before you, and I would like you to ponder over these limitations and let me know if there's time for questions whether you would agree that these are the limitations of the dominant model of development. I think they're based on they're all based on questionable assumptions. I am not in agreement with any of the assumptions behind the dominant model of development. Point number two, I think there is an overemphasis on economic growth at the expense of other dimensions of growth and development. Look at the promotion of consumerism, reckless consumerism, mindless consumerism that this model of development is promoting. In the process, look at what this development is doing to nature. There's a clear denudation of nature. What is this model of development doing to women? It is commodifying women. It is promoting a hegemony culture. It is creating societies that exclude, because only if you have wealth, if you have money, if you have plastic money, credit cards, bank balances, then the market opens itself out to you. But if you don't, well, you have no place in that economic system at all. It promotes urbanization. It promotes dehumanization of man. In the past, this model of development promoted imperialism and colonialism. I don't have to tell you more about this. India was a colony of the British. And today, it promotes neo-imperialism and neo-colonialism. And if you wish to add to this list a term used by some Latin American scholars, the dependency scholars as they are called, this model of development also promotes the development of underdevelopment. So I have a long list, some 8, 10, 12 limitations. I don't have time to expand on each of them, but then if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those questions at the end of my presentation. What are the consequences of this dominant model of development? Top on my list of consequences are ecological. Environmental degradation is a clear consequence of this dominant model of development. And as I began my talk with you this evening, recurring pandemics is the immediate problem that we are currently, is the problem that we are currently grappling with, which is an outcome of environmental degradation. Global warming, climate change, we are familiar with these ecological consequences, so I will not go into details. Another of the consequences of the dominant model is what I've described as widening divides. Look at the nature of divides that this dominant model of development is responsible for. In the 60s, 50s, and 60s, we spoke of the North-South divide. It still continues. But look what it is doing in the developing parts of the world. Look at the divide between industry and agriculture. Look at the divide between urban areas and rural areas. Look at the divide between rich and the poor, and so many other divides. So the second big consequence of the dominant model is what I'm describing as divides. And in my list of social consequences, I'm identifying social unrest, insecurity, crime, and terrorism as yet another of the consequences of the dominant model of development. So I assume that you have a rough idea as to what exactly I've tried to do. In this part of my framework, in this part of my outline, I've taken you to the dominant model of development. I've asked 4 leading questions to the dominant model of development. The answers are placed before you, and then I've said, look at the limitations, look at the consequences. Here, before I go on to the Gandhian vision of development, I'll place before you a quote of Gandhi, which is speaking about an economics or an economic system that inculcates mammon worship. Mammon is the god of wealth. A system, an economic system that inculcates worship of wealth, which enables the strong to become rich at the expense of the weak, Gandhi said, is not a science, or even if you wish to call it a science, it's a false science, it's a dismal science because it spells death. And I think this statement of Gandhi is prophetic. before we take a look at the Gandhian vision of development and ask the same four questions which I posed to the dominant model of development. How does Gandhi answer the same four questions? The purpose of development, according to Gandhi, creation of sustainable economies, creation of sustainable societies, and what are the how are these economies and societies to be on what foundation should they rest? These sustainable economies and societies rest on the solid foundation of non-violence, cooperation, harmony, contentment, and fulfillment of need, not greed. Compare and contrast, my friends, with the answer that you got from the dominant model of development to the same question, what is the purpose of development? And look at the answer that we got there, and look at the answer that you're getting here. Gandhi is very clear that the kind of economies and societies that we create should be sustainable in nature. And by looking at sustainability, look at the various dimensions that Gandhi adds to his understanding of sustainability. Economies and societies cannot be sustainable if they are violent. Economies and societies cannot be sustainable if they do not involve cooperation of people who are working, who are living in those economies and societies. If there is no harmony, if there's no contentment, and if it is greed that determines the behavior of the inhabitants, Gandhi says, such economies and societies cannot be termed as sustainable. So you get a completely different answer to the same question that we posed earlier to the dominant model and that we now pose to the Gandhian vision of development. Let's move to the second question. What are the basic assumptions behind the Gandhian vision of development? I'm underlining a few terms here to draw your attention to them. Gandhi is not telling us that production, distribution, consumption should not happen. Many people seem to think that Gandhi is anti-modern, Gandhi is a Luddite, Gandhi is taking us back to the old Stone Age and so on and so forth. Please don't think that Gandhi said any of these things. Gandhi was not against production, Gandhi was not against distribution, Gandhi was not against consumption. When you add the prefix sustainable before each of these economic activities, which are important, you begin to understand one of the assumptions behind the Gandhian vision of development. Secondly, please again don't think that Gandhi was against technology. Many young people think, without reading Gandhi adequately, that Gandhi was against technology. Gandhi was for technology, but he prefixed technology with the phrase or with the term appropriate. Gandhi believed in appropriate technology, and this idea was taken much further by people like J.C. Kumarappa or by E.F. Shoemaker in England. Gandhi was not against trade. He wanted trade to be fair to all the participants in the trading activity. Gandhi wanted human activity to be in balance with nature. And Gandhi believed basically in the philosophy of ecologism, which says that man is only one among billions of other species inhabiting this planet Earth. And ecologism goes further to say that unless all these species live in peaceful coexistence with each other, this planet is going to be in deep trouble. So as far as basic assumptions are concerned, again, you have a rough idea as to the sharp contrast one can draw between the basic assumptions of the dominant model and the Gandhian vision of development. Let me move on to the process of development. The same question posed earlier is now posed to the Gandhian vision. And see again how different the Gandhian answer is. That was centralized. Here Gandhi says, process must be decentralized. There it was top down. Gandhi believes in a bottom-up process of development. There they believed that big is beautiful. Gandhi believed in quite the opposite, small investments in small projects. Gandhi believed in democratic participation, in social inclusion, in local monitoring, in local control. Again, completely contradictory answers as far as this question is concerned. What is the process of development? And the answers that you get from the dominant model and the Gandhian vision. Lastly, to the fourth question, how would you measure development? And look at the Gandhian answers. fulfillment of basic material and non-material needs of everybody. I've underlined all Gandhian concept of Sarvodaya emphasizes this very clearly, that everybody's needs, basic material and non-material needs of everybody ought to be fulfilled in your development process. Gandhi also believed that that man must keep a check on the condition of the natural environment. Today we have terms like environmental resource accounting, environmental resource auditing, and so on. These terms were not used by Gandhi, but then when you read Gandhi, you're able to link up contemporary terminology like the one I'm using here with what Gandhi meant in his understanding of sustainability. Gandhi privileged agricultural development, Gandhi privileged rural development, human development, gender development. Again, all these terms are more contemporary, not used by Gandhi. Most of these terms were not used by Gandhi. They came into vogue much later, but then he was very clear the development is not development if it does not promote, encourage, and sustain agriculture or the rural areas and communities or human development or gender development. So the four questions that we pose to the dominant model, we pose to Gandhian vision, and we get completely different answers. I finally come to my concluding observations, ladies and gentlemen. The current state of planet Earth, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is a serious cause for concern. I've said this earlier, but I'm repeating it now. The frequency and number of new zoonotic diseases, the latest being COVID-19, originating in animals and being transmitted to people, has risen drastically over the last century. It's not one or two. WWF is telling us every year around 3 to 4 new zoonotic diseases are emerging. And according to WWF, as I said earlier, these new zoonotic diseases are clearly linked to environmental causes. This we must be able to understand. As a consequence of what we are doing to this fragile planet, average global temperature is said to increase by more than 5 degrees Celsius in the course of the 21st century. If you think I'm an alarmist, please read literature is telling us that if we continue to do development the way we're doing, this is how our temperature is going to rise 5 degrees by the end of this particular century. However, zoonotic diseases, environmental devastation, global warming, and climate change are avoidable catastrophes. This is a positive note I'm leaving you with. All of these things which are happening are clearly avoidable. We need to do two things if we are serious about preventing the emergence of new zoonotic diseases: halting environmental devastation and mitigating climate change. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm leaving you with two important points to ponder over if you're serious that we should set things right, if you're serious that new zoonotic diseases should not emerge, if you're serious about halting environmental devastation, mitigating climate change. I think these two things we must do today. Number one, comprehend the implications and consequences of the current dominant model of development, which is why I spent some time asking those questions, interrogating this model, and placing before you the answers that you get from these four questions, placing before you the limitations of this model, and also placing before you the consequences of this model of development. So if that dimension of my presentation is clear, it has been understood by all of you this evening, then the second point is important. We must take corrective action by understanding and internalizing the Gandhian vision of sustainable development. So these are two important things that I think we ought to do here. And I finally end my talk to you this evening by placing before you a few of my favorite quotations of Mahatma Gandhi. Number one, a technological society has two choices, Gandhi said somewhere. First, it can wait until catastrophic failures expose systemic deficiencies, distortions, and self-deceptions. This is the first thing, the first choice that we have. We can wait for these catastrophes to keep hitting us, and then we try to react. Secondly, and this is where Gandhi is proved to be a visionary. Secondly, a culture can provide social checks and balances to correct systemic distortion prior to catastrophic failure. So Gandhi is very clearly telling, and he said this more than 100 years ago, that if this is the way you're doing development, these catastrophes are bound to happen. These should not happen. A society, a culture, an economy must provide checks and balances to prevent these catastrophes from happening. Another of my favorite quote is when Gandhi said that the earth is enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. And I leave this last quote before you. For each one of you listening in here today, I think we need to do something if we are serious about preventing the ecological devastation and recurring pandemics from engulfing us. We must be the change we wish to see in the world. So I've come to the end of my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. While thanking you for your patience, let me also give you a brief list of the references that I've used to put together this little talk of mine. I've given you my email also in case you wish to engage with me. If not on this occasion, maybe on other occasion, please feel free to engage with me, because I would like more and more young people like you to absorb the things that we are doing, the things that Uday Krishna through the Gandhi Smarak Nidhi. Dr. Shivraj is here. He is on our executive committee of the Rural Development University. And I was just telling Dr. Krishna that the new university is about to open a Gandhi Center. And the Vice Chancellor was asking us, please tell us what the Gandhi Center should do. So we want to involve as many young people as possible in activities of this particular kind. So if you've absorbed what I have tried to do, and there are other distinguished scholars, speakers also will be speaking to you. So we're able to get an essence of what we're doing. I think the purpose behind this exercise would be fulfilled. Thank you once again. Once again, Professor Satish, for inviting me to deliver this lecture. I hope there will be, I'm looking forward to listen to the others on this panel, and I hope that something positive will come out of this. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir, for the keynote address. Now, I would request today's theme speaker, Srimati Karna Madam, Director, Gandhi Memorial Center, USA, to address the webinar. Over to you, Madam.
Sir, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, first I want to thank you all very much for this most kind invitation to join you. You are in your evening hours, and we here in Washington, D.C. are just beginning the day. And I want to humbly state that I am not the scholar and the esteemed individual that many of your other speakers are today. I feel I too am a student here joining this distinguished gathering. And I want to thank Dr. Kumar, because I feel I've sat in on a wonderful lecture and class, and I feel eternally grateful for your insights and very positive, in fact, development that you have brought to us through the lens of Mahatma Gandhi and through your own research and study. That is something that I think we cannot get enough of, and I thank you, sir. Before I speak, I also want to give a word of thanks to Dr. Amte, who I think will be following me, and to say that, Dr. Amte, I met your father on my first visit to India in 1999. I was traveling with grandson of Gandhiji, Arun Gandhi, and he and his wife Sunanda led us on a visit to meet with your father, Baba Amte. And so I feel very honored to be a part of this panel with you also. And I'm looking forward to also hearing the comments from Dr. Krishna. This opportunity I have to share with you an expression from the life message of Mahatma Gandhi from the Gandhi Memorial Center here in Washington. I feel quite blessed to be with you from this side of the globe. And I think perhaps this time, which has been so difficult for so many around the world, has also led to some very positive, creative initiatives among the human population to find greater ways to connect, to communicate, and to create. And if I may borrow some of the comments from Dr. Kumar in terms of sustainability and the appropriate and fair elements of development that Gandhiji used without using those words, that we, I think, in our modern generation, in our modern time, can look to Gandhiji and realize how far ahead of his time he was. The theme of this panel, of this webinar, of these talks today, of thinking of Gandhi in today's modern context, sometimes we undervalue and underappreciate those who have come before us, and knowing and understanding that what timeless values they shared in what met the needs of their day still meet our needs today. And this being, of course, very much an emphasis on the moral and ethical values of life. And they can fit every age and stage of existence on this globe. Now, forgive me because I'm not a scholar. I don't have a prepared PowerPoint, and I don't have the ability and training. I'm probably the only one on your panel who does not have a PhD, but I have the heart and the commitment and the devotion to sharing the message of the life of Mahatma Gandhi, not so that we may follow Gandhi, but that we might seek what he sought. And the truth of what we might call the awareness of nature and soul and person. And this very thought that I'm preparing for our upcoming Gandhi Jayanti observance on October 2nd here in Washington, DC, is the subject of Gandhi, the village of my dreams. And I think at this time where perhaps the world is a little bit more insular because we have lessened the opportunity to interact and meet with people directly one-to-one because of the precautions with the public health that we face at this time. I think that the opportunity to go back to what Gandhiji said, that my ideal village still exists in my imagination. And we have to be, I think, as Dr. Kumar was describing, extremely imaginative, creative, inspiring in order to draw upon the ideals and inspiration that will help us move forward. The very idea of the challenges that we face, and so many of them described so intricately by Dr. Kumar, suggests that we must be even more creative in our thinking. We have to be even more understanding of the mutual effect on society, on economy, on self. And I think perhaps with our emphasis on political, societal, economic, cultural, sometimes the very idea of the village of my dreams is to understand the very spirit of ourselves and how we can nurture that and develop it and cultivate it. Of course, you are probably seeing in your news media and your own interest in pursuing current events around the world. And you're probably looking, for example, from India to see what is America doing? not because you want to follow what America is doing, but you are thinking, where in the world do we find strong examples of positive growth, of sustainable change? And sometimes we feel quite negative. We don't know where to look to find those examples. And then when we look at the big picture, we feel that suddenly we find ourselves having to turn to a smaller example, just as Dr. Kumar was saying, going from the bigger to the smaller experience, the individual, the village, the local community. And then there we see very clearly the positive education, the positive communication, the positive collaboration. That is what I believe Gandhiji was referring to when he said that the soul of India lies in its villages. Today, our concept of village is different. We might not personally know and experience the rural experience of life and living in the rural villages, though we might. We might be anywhere in the globe living in an urban setting or a suburban setting. And I think what Gandhiji was trying to do was bring the village back to the city. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden everyone will be a farmer, everyone will produce their own, for their own needs, but it means to have that ideal to live by. Sometimes I think of Gandhiji and the whole village Swaraj movement and the village industries movement and the handicrafts movement. And I think, what is so different from what Gandhiji did then to today? Look at today, people are afraid that with the closure and restrictions because of this pandemic, what's going to happen to traditional arts, to the performing arts, to the handicrafts, to those who depend on a constant interaction with a larger community. So the ideal and the challenge that we face today, I feel, is no different than what Gandhiji faced and what his predecessors faced. But we can draw from the ideals and actions of great thinkers of all times and all lands. Hopefully I see there are 348 participants in this webinar right now. And I'm thinking of what impact it's going to have on each and every one of you, scholars and students and activists. You know, I once was invited to speak to a group of graduate students in Ahmedabad. And it was a community education service event for the graduate students of the university that Mahatma Gandhi founded, Gujarat Vidyapith in Ahmedabad. And the students that I spoke to were all journalism students. Now this probably was 10 years ago. And in my mind, I'm imagining, where are those journalism students today who attended these workshops and classes at Gandhiji's institution, Gujarat Vidyapith? And what are they doing today? And even though I spoke to them just for a short time, and they perhaps know far more about their own industry than I could ever imagine, and what challenges they face, I think today of the students of this wonderful panel who are listening and have the opportunity to draw from their esteemed, reputable, and dignified teachers and scholars and educators and trainers who are setting them up for a path into the future that will bring not just the idealism of Mahatma Gandhi, but the what Gandhi said, educating the head, the heart, and the hands. And I can think that might sound for you all who are in such a scholarly level of expression to sound very simplistic. But sometimes it is the simplest things that we communicate, that we remember, that we live by, that we understand, and that we share. Perhaps my longing to continue to learn from Mahatma Gandhi is very idealistic, but it is also, I feel at the same time, very practical. You know, you see behind me this statue of Gandhiji at the spinning wheel. And these books on the shelves behind me in this Gandhi Center library are all books by and about Mahatma Gandhi. Some of you, I was looking at Dr. Kumar's references at the end of his presentation, and I saw at the very beginning the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. I cannot tell you how many people who visit our Gandhi Center in Washington, D.C., and they cannot believe that Gandhiji's works collected over 100 volumes by the Indian government, his newspapers, his publications, his books, his letters and correspondence. He wrote endlessly his thoughts. And perhaps for you students who have not had as much opportunity to read Gandhiji's own writings, I remind you, when you're trying to discern what is useful from his experience in writing for us today, that in his publications, he frequently wrote a small note to the reader. And he said, "Dear reader, if you are reading my writing and find there are any inconsistencies with what you have read in my writing before, please disregard what I have written before, because I have since changed my mind." Now, we hold our greatest thinkers and actors in the world to a high standard. And we have to also understand that through life, we evolve within one human life and within countless generations of human life. And Gandhiji, I think, was humble enough to say that I too am still learning and evolving and growing. What I say today with great strength and fervor, I may change my mind tomorrow after I learn something new that has infected and affected my consciousness. And I think that is an example for us to remember, that we have such firm beliefs of how life should be on this earth. But we have to be thoughtful about the fact that, like life on earth, we too unfold in our awareness. We know better today by science, by historians, by anthropologists, by those who are constantly seeking and unearthing truth about our life, human life, about the life of all of nature, about how to live together sustainably, non-violently. And it is a constant process. There is no end to our learning and unfolding. So these things, I think, are essential to understanding how we can interpret Gandhiji's message today and every day. The very notion that we have all the answers is already false. The notion that we have all the answers. And yet at the same time, the idea that we have the creative power to enjoin upon ourselves and each other, that we can seek the answers to solve the most difficult problems. And there's a thought from Gandhiji when we think of, I was beginning to get worried, thinking of all the things that were enumerated by Dr. Kumar, how impossible our challenges seem to be today, not just with the pandemic and the challenges to balancing the divides economically, culturally, socially, personally. But there is a thought from Mahatma Gandhi that can help point the way. That make sure, he said, first of the essential thing, and other things will follow. So there we get to this crux. what is the essential thing that we have to make sure of? What I say is the essential thing may be very different from what you say, from what the other 348 participants in this conference would say, what the other billions of people on this globe would say. How do we collaboratively and cooperatively come to an understanding of what it is that we must do? What is that essential thing? Whether it's the environment, or whether it's in terms of society and how societies function, whether it's in terms of in a smaller basis of a village, a so-called village community, which remember that our first experience of village is our family. And even in our families, we have these challenges to overcome, to understand, to appreciate. So these ideals, I think, have to be at every level. Going back to my days as a graduate student, I studied in a field of international peace and conflict resolution. Perhaps some of you have participated in such courses. And the very foundation of the program, which the professor who established this program at American University in Washington, D.C., was looking at conflict and peace building at various levels, but starting with the individual, going from the individual to between individuals, to between groups, to between states, and globally. Conflict is of every nature: environmental conflict, of the political conflict, of economic conflict, all of the forms of exploitation that Dr. Kumar described in his presentation. We face these everywhere all the time. And yet it's our duty, our responsibility to understand our role in removing the element of that conflict. And how do we do that? Well, if Gandhiji's dream of the village and the action of the idealism of life of the village is village Swaraj, the key right there in Gandhiji's expression is Swaraj. And we might think of this in a political, historical context in terms of India's movement toward independence, but must remember in Gandhiji's own life what Swaraj essentially meant. This self-rule, this individual self, to overcome our own biases and ignorance and fears and hatred. If we cannot work on this Swaraj, how can we work on any other Swaraj? So I think even though this might sound a bit more philosophical, emotional, psychological than what you'll hear in the other presentations today, I think it is still that essential thing that Gandhiji said we must work on before we can find that other things will follow in our efforts. The whole idea of means and ends, that if we take care of the means, the ends will follow suit. You know, Gandhiji's twin ideals of Satya and Ahimsa, they are twin sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. Truth and nonviolence are twin sides of the same coin, as Gandhiji put it. There's also this aspect of the ideal in Gandhiji's mind, and I think this gets back to what Dr. Kumar said about the simplicity of living, though that's not usually our first choice to identify in terms of rural development or creating a sustainable global economy, because we get so accustomed to the luxuries and comforts of life. But Gandhiji explained something which I found to be very interesting. He said, you have to be rural minded before you can be nonviolent. And we think about, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you have to live in the rural setting. It says you have to be rural minded in order to be nonviolent. Now, if I think about today, here in the United States, there's an extraordinary amount of violence. It's impossible to look in the newspaper or put on the news or look online and not see the devastating effects of violence. But Dr. Kumar gave such I think, a significant presentation looking at what are the sources of that violence. Is it because people have weapons? Is it because of injustice? Is it because of the imbalance of society in terms of need and greed? Is it the lack of empathy? Is it the ignorance of each other? Impatience? The list goes on endlessly. But if I think about my own experience, I can only be personal. I am not a scholar. I'm just drawing from personal experience. Though I live in Washington, D.C., I spend time each week on a farm in Southern Maryland. And my time, even those brief excursions to be with nature, I think of the effects of people all over the world who don't have that opportunity to draw from the sustenance of Mother Nature, that which fills our lungs, nourishes our soul, and enlightens our mind. Without those elements, how can we be nonviolent? How? I don't think it's possible. Even if it's only 5 minutes a day that we drink in the purity of nature, how can we live without that? And it's more challenging today. I'm sitting here before you on a computer, and depending on technology and internet and electricity in order to share this message with you. And yet my first thought when I wake up in the morning is, I need to go for a walk. I need to be outdoors. And in many places around the world, in India, even here in the United States, that's not possible. Thinking of the very concept of rural development, I'm thinking of people in the urban settings, not just in India, but here in the United States. The children don't even know where vegetables are grown. They don't know how the khadi, the cotton clothing on their body, is made. They don't have the connection to the earth that would fill their lives and give them that space and freedom, that swaraj, that would be required to live nonviolently. So I perhaps am giving you a very personal concern and thought and hope that what we need more than ever, we often have these events and talks and lectures of what it makes Gandhi relevant today. And my question is always, what makes Gandhi irrelevant at any moment? There is no irrelevance to anything that Gandhiji said. Perhaps the mode and the expression changes, just as Dr. Kumar said, the words that Gandhiji used may not match our language of today, but the inspiration and the idealism are eternal. And I feel that we have an opportunity to inspire ourselves to study, not just to study the writings of Gandhiji and not just to study the works of all the great thinkers and doers of all times and all lands, but to study ourselves, to study nature, to imbibe that breath of life that will nourish us through every step and stage of life, through every challenge, twist, and turn on the path. It is my sincere pleasure and gratefulness to speak with you all today. And if any of you happen to find in post-COVID time that you get to travel to United States, to Washington, D.C., I would invite you to come and visit the Gandhi Memorial Center, which is unique in itself. And I think in the introduction at the very beginning of this panel, you heard that this Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Foundation and Gandhi Memorial Center were founded by Swami Premananda, who, if you can imagine, came to the United States to settle in Washington, D.C. before India's independence in 1928 at the request of his guru, Swami Yogananda Paramahansa. And Swami Premananda had this vision. This is what we speak of, I think, when we speak of Gandhi, is vision. And that in 1959, Swami Premananda founded the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Foundation here in Washington, D.C. And then in 1976, dedicated this Gandhi Memorial Center to house the foundation and the activities of the foundation. And at that time, the founder, Swami Premananda, and the then Indian ambassador to United States, Ambassador T.N. Kaul, dedicated this Gandhi Center to the dissemination of the ideal life, message, and philosophical and practical concerns of Mahatma Gandhi. Today, this center is primarily, I would say, focused on the educational and cultural and spiritual activities, both that which Gandhiji lived and that which inspired Gandhiji. And so this is my opportunity to share with you a little bit from this part of the world that I'm very honored to know of your pursuit, of your studies. And I must say, I looked at your university website and saw some of the other wonderful speakers and panels that you are presenting. And I may have to sign in. I hope to participate. And I think you had one on Tagore recently. And I'm sorry that I missed it, but that was one that greatly interested me. And I think, Dr. Kumar, you have a picture of Tagore on the wall behind you. And I've been wanting to mention that from the very beginning.
Yes.
But I'm just so appreciative to meet each and every one of you, to hear your insights and thoughts and expressions. And I wish you all the best, because I know in these challenging times, we need that encouragement and support. And I will conclude my comments at this time, but I want to just give my deep appreciation and thankfulness to have these few moments with you today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, for transmitting our mindset towards the theme of the webinar. Now, I would request today's guest of honor, Padma Shri Dr. Prakash Baba Amte sir, Gandhian social activist, Ramon Magsaysay awardee, Maharashtra, India, who is the live model of today's theme, to address the webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Really fortunate enough to have been invited for this international webinar. I heard both the lectures, very much inspired by the thoughts. Technically speaking, I am not a basically Gandhian, but my father, who was the son of a landlord from Nagpur, after coming in contact with Mahatma Gandhi, 42 freedom movement, gradually he changed his lifestyle, and after the independence, he started work for the leprosy patient, which was not far away from Sivagram, but about 90 kilometers from Sivagram in Chandrapur district, and he named it as Anandavan, Actually, the name of the institution was Maharogi Seva Samiti. That means leprosy service center. Leprosy. That time, all these leprosy patients were driven out of their villages and they were begging everywhere in front of the churches and temples. But against the wishes of his parents, his friends, he started the institution in 1949 with just 14 rupees in his pocket, his young wife, and we two sons, Vikas and Prakash. Myself is Prakash, yeah. And the number of leprosy patients was 6. He was fortunate enough. In 1950, when Vinobaji started Padayatra, Bhudan movement, and he came to know that Baba has started a leprosarium in Varora in Chandrapur district. So he intentionally visited Baba's. It was a thick forest, in fact, with two small huts where he has started the work. So he was fortunate enough to have been inaugurated by Vinobaji. And gradually, more and more leprosy patients started getting admitted to Anandvan. The only difference between Baba's work and Mother Teresa's work, the common thing was compassion. But these patients who have deformities, wounds on their bodies, were just begging in front of temples and they had lost their confidence, self-respect. So when Baba started working for them, he infused confidence in them. Every patient in Anandvan was inspired to work. Whatever in capacity, they had limitations because of the deformity. But Baba's philosophy was, again, the inspiration was Mahatma Gandhi. A lot of people say that we work for the people. But Baba used to say that the social worker should work with the people. So whenever he wanted to start a work early in the morning, he was the first person to start the work. And naturally, when people came to know, the patients came to know that Baba started the work, all of them used to rush and help him. So that way, the institution grew like a family, and the number of leprosy patients started growing up. There were a lot of small-scale industries, very small scale. He taught them farming, he taught them small vocational training, and basically all of them lived there with self-respect. And then people started coming to visit Ananda. We both, myself and my brother, lived in very isolation without any friends. Because of the prejudice about leprosy, nobody would visit Anandvan. But gradually we had a schooling in a municipal school in Marathi medium and had no ambition to what to do in future. But when we were in our matriculation, that time, by the time Baba's work was known in Maharashtra, a lot of Gandhians started visiting. And then later on, famous personalities visited Anandvan. So we both decided to continue Baba's work, preferably getting a medical degree. Baba was a lawyer and then he had to take a training in leprosy, Calcutta School of Tropical Medicine. So one had a limitation to work in a medical field. Fortunately enough, we both got admission in Nagpur Medical College. And we passed every exam, first MBBS, second MBBS. And after appearing for the final MBBS in 1970, almost 50 years back, Baba said, let us go for a picnic. Everybody loves to go for a picnic in a forest for a couple of days. And really, we were happy that Baba has asked us for a picnic. This place where the project is situated now, Loka Biradari Prakalp, is 250 kilometers from Anandvan. But there were no roads, there were no bridges on the river. So we reached this place on the third day. It was such a difficult area to reach this place, Bhamragarh. But it's a beautiful forest, very, very thick forest. Even sun rays, they couldn't reach to the earth. Confluence of 3 rivers, beautiful rivers, clean water. And we were so happy that Baba has brought us for a picnic in a very nice place. So, but it was a month of December, it was quite cool. We had all pullovers, shawl, plus a fire lit in front of us. Next day, Baba said, now that we have come to this place, let us go and explore the area. So he took us to the first village. And that was really shocking. The villagers, after hearing the noise of a vehicle, they came out of their huts. All were scared like wild animals. They thought, who are these people with all the clothes and pullovers and shawl and everything? Why have they come? And when we wanted to have some dialogue with them, all of them ran away with the forest. It was quite a strange experience. People in this world live without clothes, just a loincloth to cover the private part. Nothing much to it. Why? Because it was a thick forest, they could survive. Tubers, roots, hunting of the animals and all. Language was different. The tribe is known as Madia. It's one of the most primitive tribes. Went to next village and to the next village. There are so many villages in the forest, but we couldn't have a dialogue with anybody. So in the evening, we again came back to the confluence of the river in Bamdag, where we had camped. And we were all thinking in our mind. Nobody was talking about the whole day's impression. And suddenly Baba said, now that you both have decided to carry on my work in Anandvan, I want to start a work for these people, this Madia tribe. Bring them to the mainstream. They're living like animals. Teach them some vocational training, a little bit of organic farming. And suddenly I realized the intention of his picnic. And I said, Baba, I'm just 22 years old in 1970. If you start a work for this tribe, I will carry on. So Baba felt so happy. I could see the joy in his eyes, the spark in his eyes. We went back, we passed our MBBS exam. Then Baba said, why don't you write to government of Maharashtra to give us a land in this area to start the work? And that's how, the turning point in my life. Indirectly, Gandhiji was responsible for that because Baba's earlier life, he was the son of a landlord and he had all the first luxurious life there in Nagpur, big bungalow, racer car and whatnot. But after starting the work in Anandvan, he left everything. Not a single pie from his family, neither from his friends. But that was, effect of Gandhi on his life. So that way, that inspiration came from Gandhi to Baba to Dr. Prakash Amte. So that way, we are related to Gandhian thoughts. And exposure was most important. I think, when living in a city, as Karunaji said that the people in the cities or students in the cities, they don't know from where the grains comes and from where the milk comes. Nobody has visited the rural areas. They don't know how the people there in the area live. So that exposure, which Baba had not exposed us to this area, probably I would not have come here. So exposure to rural areas or the tribal area is a must for all city living people. Not the people, but the students basically who are about to start their career. That makes a difference. That makes you to think about your life in city. Your own brothers and sisters are living like animals. And in spite of having so many things, you still complain about everything. So that has, exposure makes the change in their life. So I always tell that exposure changed my life. So if you want to live a life in future, starting the career, the students must visit the rural areas or NGOs working for the tribal. So that's how, the work started like this. Government of Maharashtra gave us a land in 1973 and we started with a small hut. Myself, fortunate enough to have got a doctor wife from Nagpur. She also left everything and she came with me to live in a very small hut, just about 10 feet by 8 feet. And we were expecting patients. a lot of difficult life was here, but we were mentally prepared, so nobody was complaining about no electricity or no roads in the monsoon, no communication, living in isolation, nothing much to eat except dal and rice. But still, nobody complained about our own, life here. But we were just worried about the, the, the tribals, for whom we have come. They had no faith in the civilized people or in the modern medicine. So that was really time testing for us. We learned their language, which is a spoken language, Madia. It's totally different from Marathi or Hindi. We learned their customs. Most of the villages had their pujari, village quack. They believe in black magic, sacrificing animals, mantra, tantra, whatnot. So we thought it very challenging, to get their faith, confidence. But after some days, we realized that those village quacks cannot cure all the patients. So some of the patients were really serious. They used to send them back and said that now that's God's wish. He will survive or not, I don't know. Will you please take him back? So we requested them to bring such patients, serious patient, to our hospital. They used to put him on a charpai, on a cot, bring it on shoulder. We were lucky and fortunate enough to have cured serious patient initially. I always tell people, believe in examples, not in lecture. A patient who was brought horizontally in the sense that on the cot was falling on the shelter, went back walking after taking the treatment, after getting cured. So that made a lot of difference, and gradually patients started coming from the area nearby is the Bastar area of Chhattisgarh and also Telangana. So 40 to 50,000 tribal patients started visiting Loki Biradari Hospital, and then they accepted we as their own brother and sister-in-law. They used to call us Bhavu and Vaini, like that. And then they started telling the other problems. What were the other problems? Problems of exploitation, because they had no education. They never came in contact with civilized people. And whosoever came in contact with them exploited them. So tremendous, fear about civilized people. So we thought I had 5, 6 learned volunteers from the cities taking inspiration. Baba, they also were living with us. In 76, we decided to give them education, teach them about their rights. And with difficulty, of course, we could get 25 students. Again, they had no idea about education, why they are giving us education and all that. Nobody was educated. But once after a year, those 15 students who lived for a year with us, they came to know about the importance of education, about their rights. We taught them organic farming, how to grow vegetables, fruit, little bit. They had no greed, never thought of tomorrow. Nobody, not even today. Tribals, they don't think of about future. So they live a very simple life. A lot of things we had learned from them. Really surprised to know certain facts about this tribal life. They have a panchayat system. All the disputes, problems in the village are solved in the village panchayat. Second thing is that in the last 47 years, we are living here for 47 years, we had not heard a case of a rape in this area. They respect women, basically. In spite of poverty, in spite of hunger, there is no beggar. They don't steal anything. There are a lot of good things about these people. And they don't think about tomorrow. They don't store the things for the future generation. So that has changed our life. We had heard about Gandhiji. He has changed his own life after going through India. Gopal Krishna Gokhale had asked him to see the India, rural India, basic. But when Baba brought us here and we are living with these tribals, it had changed tremendously our own life. More or less, I tell people that we are doing a selfless service. Selfless service actually It's written in Gita. We came in at a very early age. I have not much read about Gita or any philosophy further. And after coming over here, we were so busy and all work. But what is this selfless work? How we have started this? I always tell an example. A serious patient was brought from 30 kilometers, 20 miles. The young boys and from the villages brought him on a cot, barefoot ambulance we call it, crossing 4 or 5 villages, so that most of the people came to know that serious patient has been brought to Lok Biradari Prakalpa Hospital. The patient was kept in front of my heart. We were so happy that they have brought a patient for the treatment here. And the rest of the, of course, volunteers went back. But next moment, got so worried that how to diagnose a patient without investigation, without knowing their language. Really difficult. We referred some of the books. Decided on a diagnosis, probably it's a cerebral malaria. It's a malignant malaria. It's a very serious disease. And we started with anti-malarials and life-saving drugs underneath a tree. All the while, one of my volunteers used to attend him 24 hours attention. And on the third day, the patient opened his eyes, started moving his limbs. And on the fifth day, same patient was brought on a cot horizontally, went back vertically, carrying his cot on his shoulder, went back walking, the same way he has brought. But while going, he didn't say thank you. Taking money was out of question because there are no money. But at least you have saved my lives. Giving thank you, it's a tradition in a civilized world. We felt a little bit odd, after taking so much of trouble for 5 days, day and night, observing him, giving him treatment. He went back without talking to us. So then we learn more about their customs. So in every village, they have village head, village panchayat, and they naturally have a problem. As everywhere you see the problems. So whenever there is a problem, there is a dispute, they have a common place called Gotul. The big bell is, I think they ring the bell and then with a representative of every hut, every villagers, they gather there and they find a solution of the dispute. This basically by consensus and then forget about it. Nobody would say thank you to anybody. So that's a custom. Helping each other is a custom. Why to say thank you? So when we came to know that they didn't do this intentionally. This is a part of their culture. Helping each other. So we learned a lot from them. And we are enjoying this selfless service. Hospital, of course, now thousands of tribals have become aware about the health education. Next is education, basically for the rights because of the exploitation. But giving an opportunity, a lot of them have become doctors, engineers. Hundreds of them have become teachers. The beauty of the education in this area, in Lok Biradari, 80% of the students, both girls and boys, 80% of them have come back to their district to serve their own community. Well, it's a great thing, satisfaction for us. A lot of people are attracted to the cities and in the Western world. Here, we are so satisfied that so many students, after taking education in cities, have come back and serving their own. Our own children were educated with this tribal school. They were probably the only non-tribals. After taking their education, the elder son is a doctor. He also decided to join our work. Baba felt so happy that third generation had decided to join the work, which is still a difficult area. It's still a thick forest, still there's a lot of other problems in this area. Insurgency is there, but in spite of all that, my elder son is a doctor. His wife is, fortunately, his partner is from Goa. She is a gynecologist. Younger son is an engineer. He had his education in Pune. He also came back and is looking after the school. His wife is also from Pune. So, third generation has taken over the responsibility. Their own children, my grandsons, They are also taking education in this Marathi medium in the same school, and a great satisfaction and enjoy. A lot of people we had. We consider ourselves lucky enough to be away from media. For 30 years, we have not gone out. But when Mr. Jagannath Vani from Canada, he came here in 2003, and he said, your work should be known to the people, so that a lot of students, youngsters can take inspiration. So first public meeting was in New York. There was a convention of Marathi people in 2003, and we were the chief guest. And there was a lecture in the form of interview, in fact, it was a dialogue. And since then, we had a lot of interaction with the students at different places, a lot of invitations about the presentation of our work in different colleges, medical colleges, IITs, and all these things. And I'm really happy to tell you that looking at the work of Baba, visiting Hemalkasa, a lot of NGO has been started in Maharashtra, different places, a lot of NGOs. Taking inspiration now, you cannot copy anybody's work, but some of them are working for the orphan children, some of them are for HIV children, the children whose parents are done the suicide, farmer suicide. So about 70, 80 NGOs have started in Maharashtra, taking inspiration from Baba's work or Hemal Kasa's work. So that way, I initially said that I am not qualified to work to talk about Gandhian philosophy in the context, but I can tell people that living simply, we have not missed anything. Not missed anything. I mean, we never complained about anything which you find in cities, about entertainment, about the materialistic things and all. My colleagues who are working with me, or with my children also, we have a common kitchen, have very simple vegetarian food. So that type of life we are leading here. Except a few words about my animals. That is more famous in the world because all these animals who are supposed to be cruel and unpredictable, they are member of my family. That includes leopards, bears, and crocodiles, and snakes, and whatnot. These tribals used to kill and eat all of them. We requested them not to kill the young ones. Please bring the young animals to. We will save their life. We will give you food in exchange of the animal. We will teach you farming. We will teach you how to grow vegetables and other things. So about more than 100 animals are with me in my family. For 3, 4 leopards and bears and crocodiles. And initially they used to live with me in my house and come for a walk to the river on a confluence without any chain or any cane, anything. I told you that they were member of my family. Since the school has started, the children were playing around. It's dangerous to keep them open. So they are in the cages behind my house. But the relationship, the tribals who only thought that these animals are our food, now they have changed their attitude. They are loving animals. They are doing farming. And that way, without planning much, we both are doctors. My wife is with me. She was an anesthetist. So we both initially started a hospital for the tribal and then forget about other things. But when we came to know that when doctors say that you take the medicine after the food, and then we realized that they had no food to eat. We must teach them how to do the farming. There was a lot of exploitation, and then we started the school. So one after another, seeing the problems of the people, the work expanded like anything. We're again fortunate enough to get a lot of volunteers from the cities to help this work, and a lot of inspiration to the students. Now, I had told Mr. Panur that I don't feel myself qualified to talk about really Gandhian thoughts or Gandhian work, but at least I can say that in this COVID-19, this is a result of destruction of nature. There is no doubt about it. You must think of changing your lifestyle all over the world. For 6 months, world has almost stopped, but still is going on. So after the post-COVID area, everybody should think about growing more environment-friendly project, going to the villages, start small projects around the villages so that the villagers would not go to the cities. As we have seen in Maharashtra, after the lockdown, lakhs of people went back to their homes, and there are a lot of problems with them on way back. So government should think about having a small scale industries or vocational training program around the villages, in the villages, so that they did not go to the cities and lead an artificial life. Thank you very much for inviting me for this international webinar. We were really inspired by Jivan Kumarji, and I am really happy that Karunaji also met Baba in 1999. Thanks again, and all the best to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for illuminating our mindset towards the webinar. Now the floor is open for the interaction. As we are running out of time, we take up only few questions which we have received from chat box. I request Sunil Kumar sir to moderate the interaction session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So the first question to the Jivan sir.
Yeah.
So the question is, how Gandhi is relevant in today's context, and are Gandhi's ideas relevant in 21st century?
Okay, thank you. I consciously prefaced my talk with the pandemic because I felt there is need to learn from Gandhi's thoughts and put the pandemic in a Gandhian perspective. So there is indeed relevance of Gandhi today. More than 100 years ago, if you read Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, he talks about modern civilization, he talks about Western civilization, he talks about the foundations of Western civilization based on modernization, which will inevitably lead to destruction of nature, inevitably lead to social instability, inevitably lead us downhill towards a path of destruction. Gandhi anticipated this. And therefore, I think today when we are in immediate context of the pandemic, when we ask questions as to where did this pandemic come from and how do we deal with the pandemic, I think it's important to recollect the vision of a man like Gandhi, who told us that these things need not happen if we are conscious about sustainable living, sustainable development. If we are conscious about a quotation that I placed there, if we are conscious about fulfilling need, not greed, and if we are conscious about simple living, what Babe Amte has instilled in his children, and the work that is being followed there, if we listen to Dr. Prakash Amte very carefully, I think all these are telling us that simple living, high thinking, working with the people, following a sustainable lifestyle, being one with the other creatures of the universe, other creatures of the planet, are all things that Gandhi told us we need to follow. But in the name of development, in the name of modernization, in the name of progress, we have lost our moorings, we have lost our bearings. So my simple answer to the questioner is Gandhi is very much relevant today because of what we are doing to ourselves, what we are doing to our planet, what we are doing to even future generations. So for youngsters like you, it's very important to find out how we can arrest the kind of development that we are doing today so that we can all live happily with each other, live happily with nature. And lessons from, Babe Amte's lifestyle, lessons from what is happening in Anandwan. Incidentally, Prakash Amteji, I have come there also with my wife and daughter. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting you, but I had the pleasure of meeting some of the others there. I keep coming to Institute of Gandhian Studies in Varza to deliver lectures there. And so on one such visit, Bharat Mahoday Saab and C.P. Joseph, I insisted that since my daughter was with us, we should come to Anandvan and spend some time there. So we drove down. We had a nice day-long visit to your ashram, found out the work that is going on there, and so on. So I recollect those memories very much. So the answer to the question is Gandhi is very much relevant today. If you feel that something is wrong with the way in which we are doing development, something is wrong in the way in which we are going ahead with our lives. The pandemic has taught us that we need to sit back and look at what we're doing to ourselves and take corrective measures. So if youngsters like you feel something is wrong with what we're doing to ourselves, something is wrong with the planet, then we are responsible for that. We need to take corrective measures. Then Gandhi becomes very important there, and the lives of people who have followed in Gandhi's footsteps, like Baba Amte or even Dr. Prakash and his brother Vikas Amte, I think are telling us that we need to do something to stop this reckless kind of development that we're doing to ourselves.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. The next question to Karuna, ma'am. Ma'am, the question is, how can one promote Gandhian's value among students in practical manner?
Well, thank you for the question. Perhaps my experience with the Gandhi Center, of course, my audience of students here in the Washington, D.C. area is quite international, being the city that it is. And I have the wonderful privilege and opportunity to share Gandhiji's message with students of all ages. And the practicality, I would insist, is not dependent on me. What I can share is a message and an ideal, and it is up to each individual student to find the practical application in his or her life, in his or her work, study, and service. And I think that might be the key word that particularly Dr. Prakash Ante put forth to all of us, that with the ideal of simple living, primary in that living is the ideal of service. And that is where we arrive at the idea of practical. It's not just an idea and a philosophy and a thought. It is active. It is active, selfless service. And I think in our world today, whether you are in India or France or Israel or the US, you have this idea that we seem to forget about selfless service. And perhaps it's worries and frightens young students who are starting out on a career to think, well, I have to make money and provide for my family and create a future for myself. I can't do everything selflessly. And I think that's the mistake we make in understanding the value of our contributions to society, is that when we start with the ideal of selfless service, everything else will follow. That which we need to sustain ourselves and our families and our communities is entirely rooted in selfless service. So I think when the question of how to bring Gandhi in practical terms to students, that I think would be the key in my mind, and something to which I'm continually striving. We all have our agenda, our determined focus, but I think to constantly remind ourselves that the need for selfless service, whether in a village or in an urban setting, in a business, in a university, in a school, in a family, if we don't continually remind ourselves to practice selfless service, then I think that's where our challenges meet us every day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. The last question to Prakash sir.
Okay.
So the question is, what changes required in education system to change the youngsters' mindset to connect more with environment?
Basically, practical education. A formal education where they go after degrees only, and degrees for getting more money. But there are a lot of schools which are integrated with different type of training to the students, practical trainings, which nowadays, of course, in the cities you cannot have enough spaces to teach them different things. As Karunaji said that they don't know from where the farm products come from, or from where the milk comes. So basically, I think exposure to different places by the students is most important. I always say, it's a world or about India, almost 30% of population live below poverty. 30%, more than 30% of poverty. And those who live in cities, basically, if they can go and see these rural areas, or people working in the rural areas have the NGOs, so their outlook can be changed, just exposure. Not that everybody would start the work in their own city or on a rural area, but exposure is important, I think. And there are so many good institutions. So practical is that a visit to such institution and learn something about the NGOs, how they are working in different places.
Thank you, sir. Nesa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Padma Shri Dr. Prakash Baba Amte sir, Dr. D. Jeevan Kumar sir, and Srimati Karna Madam for answering the questions of the participants. A small announcement before presidential remarks. We send the feedback form link now in the chat box, as well as to your registered mail, which will be active for next 48 hours. Kindly fill the same and send back for e-certificate. The e-certificates will reach you from 7 to 10 days. Very shortly, we will meet in one more international webinar of our Evening Degree College, that is on 12th September 2020, next Saturday. The topic is Personal Financial Management in association with Finance Academy Australia. The invitation to register to this webinar will be sent to your email IDs. May I now request Dr. Udepi Krishna sir, President Karnataka Gandhi Smaraka Nidhi and Honorary General Secretary, Sheshadripuram Educational Trust, to render presidential remarks. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, all of you. Let me at the outset congratulate Sheshadripuram Evening Degree College, Gandhi Study Center for organizing this wonderful international seminar on relevance of Gandhian philosophy at present context. In fact, this seminar is being organized to mark the golden jubilee of the college, which has been serving the poorer and needy sections of the society. I'm told more than 350 participants have come on board from almost 13 countries. It is truly an international program, and I'm very happy that we have with us very distinguished panelists and participants. Professor D. Jeevan Kumar, Srimati Karuna, Padma Shri Dr. Prakash Baba Amte, Principal Dr. N.S. Satish, Mr. Sunil Kumar, Dr. Vinay Sagar, Professor Dharappa Konnur, and we have also among one of the participants a very distinguished Gandhian Vice President of Karnataka Gandhi Smarak Nidhi, Professor G.B. Shivaraju, our beloved the trustees of Sheshadripuram institutions, faculty members and students and dear participants. Dr. Jeevan Kumar's keynote was really a masterly presentation. He spoke eloquently on development, the dominant model versus the Gandhian vision. And speaking on the dominant model, that is the Western idea, he took us through the consequences of the dominant model, starting from environmental degradation, climate change, recurring pandemics, global warming, etc. And he took us through how the planet, the health of the planet Earth is in danger, and how encroachment on natural resources is happening across, and how encroachment of our natural world has increased and decreased rather, and how we have been increasing our contacts with livestock, wild animals, and human are increasing. Consequently, diseases. He used the word zoonotic diseases. This is a new term for all of us. And to start with, that was the COVID-19, which he said has now taken grip of the globe. And the consequences, as he was speaking, he said there is a lot of industry-agriculture divide, urban-rural divide, rich-poor divide. Consequently, social unrest, crime, terrorism, insecurity, and the like. Then for all these things, so what is the purpose of development? It is the purpose of present development is from rural to urban societies, destroying the rural societies and building the urban societies. And what are the basic assumptions, he said, that we are having of this dominant model? That is, we are using science and technology to convert resources into goods and services. And there has been endless production and consumption, and we have been exploiting nature recklessly. And coming to the third question which he posed, the process of development. See, it is the top-down approach against what Gandhiji spoke of, bottom-up approach. Gandhi spoke of decentralized approach. Here he speaks of the dominant model speaks of top-down approach, and it is totally dependent on Western science and technology. We have our indigenous Indian science and technology that is not being given the place in the whole process of development. And another process of development, we think starting an industry means development. This is another big notion that we have developed. And the fourth question that he posed before us was the measurement of development model. That is, today we talk of GDP, we talk of per capita income, industrial development, urbanization, and all these things. Contrast to what Gandhi spoke. Gandhi spoke of Sarvodaya, welfare of all. He said agricultural development is important, human development is important, and then gender development. He gave most emphasis on the development of women as much as men, and then the rural development. And Gandhi gave us a wonderful idea, and that is, he always said to think of pro-poor, pro-farmer, and pro-village policy. I think no other Indian leader has given so much of importance to village life. And Professor Jeevan Kumar took us through, sustainable society, what Gandhiji said. Gandhi wanted to essentially build a non-violent society. That is, where the need should be there, but it should not result in greed. That is, greed beyond need is the real culprit, and that we should be cautious about. And he spoke of also what Gandhi said of appropriate technology. I remember in 1970s, Acharya Vinoba Bhave invited a few of the IIT Delhi students and asked them to work in some villages. He said, you be with the villagers, ask what are their problems, and try to find some technological solutions to those villagers. I think that kind of use of appropriate technology. He said beautifully, Gandhi was not against production. Gandhi opposed mass production, but he favored production by the masses. This is one important thing that we'll have to always take note of. And I must say that Dr. Jeevan Kumar has given a wonderful keynote to the entire webinar. And we have also heard Srimati Karuna from Washington, DC. She was a theme speaker. And she said, Gandhian values are timeless. I perfectly agree with her. They are timeless, they are eternal. Because Gandhi himself said, whatever I have done, whatever I have said is not new. They are all as old as the hills. That is truth, non-violence. These basic principles are as old as the hills. And she spoke of awareness of nature, soul, and person through the Gandhian message. See, realizing or creating awareness in ourselves and in others of nature, soul, and person. About that also she spoke. She spoke of village of my dreams. Gandhi said, India lives in her villages. And she spoke of Swaraj. What do you mean by Swaraj? Swaraj means really empowering the village republics, as Gandhi said. So he wanted a self-reliant society. So he said, building a self-reliant society, what Atmanirbhar Bharat people are now talking. See, this self-reliance, Gandhi said, should become the villages. So as a basic unit of the society, the villages should start building. And that was the greatest idea that Gandhi said. She also spoke of the concepts of Gandhian education. That is, education of the head, hand, and heart. That is something great. Today people are talking of education of the hand in terms of skill development, etc. Gandhi spoke nearly 80 years ago about this kind of education that India requires. And Gandhi was very much emphatic on production, distribution, and consumption localized. He wanted, when you say villages should be self-reliant, he meant production, distribution, and consumption localized. So each community in the village community should be self-dependent and should not depend on outside community. That was his wonderful thing. And she also spoke of Gandhi as the most documented person. His 100 collected works are the most authenticated literature available today on Gandhi, because no other person on the world would have ever said, my life is my message. It is Gandhi who had the guts to say that. And that was the kind of man. He experimented in his life about truth throughout his life. And she also spoke of Gandhi Memorial Foundation in Washington and the good work it has been doing. Madam, your participation has really enriched this webinar. I thank you very much. And finally, coming to Padma Shri Dr. Prakash Baba Amteji. Baba Amteji is also my great inspiration. I have derived a great source of inspiration from him. And you told Gandhi's influence that has happened on your father and how he took up leprosy work, because Gandhi is one of the items of Gandhi, this constructive program that Gandhi had designed. Even leprosy work was part of that. And you spoke of the visit of Vinoba to his father's ashram, Anandvan. And then you beautifully said, sir, it is this compassion that drives the whole work of yours. And you said work with people, that is most important. And then you spoke of your father taking to a picnic in the forest, and only to find that there were the least close to villagers, they were the Madhya tribe. And from there, that visit to that village itself changed your whole attitude. And you had seen so many great lessons to learn from the Madhya tribe. See, the qualities like non-accumulation, qualities like respect for women, non-stealing, all these values you said you learned from them. See, this is something really revealing for all of us. And Gandhi has transformed the lives of the whole family, your whole family, for 3 generations. It's not that Gandhi might not have, because Gandhian principles, I'm sure, has had a profound influence on you all. And the selfless work that you have been doing on the lines of what Gandhi said, without discrimination and without expectation. That is what is most important. And helping each other as a culture, that is something that is really wonderful, sir. And one other remarkable thing that you told was we should be away from media glare in all our work. This only speaks of how selfless you are, how committed you are to your work. In fact, Gandhi said students must visit villages. They have to understand real India. You have also emphasized the same thing. In fact, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, when he met Gandhi, he told Gandhi, go to the people, live with them, work among them, and learn from them. So this is how we see, that is the greatest Gandhian message. And even today, sir, I'm happy that your work is, you have inspired several NGOs in the work of your animal welfare. And then the final message that you have given is really very inspiring, to lead a simple life. And by leading a simple life, you said you will not miss anything. That is the profound thing. And then green wild animals are part of your family. See, even wild animals are part of your family. That shows how you have well knit with nature itself. And you have also made an appeal for going for what you call environmental friendly projects post COVID-19. Sir, I must tell you, the question answer session, all the lectures given by our learned speakers have all been wonderful, and then they have really made justice to the topic that is speaking of Gandhi. Finally, I want to just conclude with one remark that I have, one point that I have to say of Gandhi. Gandhi had 5 hard tasks to perform. 1, return love for hate. Second thing, include the excluded. Third one, forgive without apology. Fourth one, to be able to admit mistakes. And the 5th one, to be simple without hypocrisy. This is the characteristic feature or quality of Gandhi that impressed me the most. I think Gandhi is relevant for all times to come if we follow his principles. We need not imitate Gandhi. I don't ask anybody to imitate Gandhi, but let us try to follow his principles in whatever context and in whatever situation, in the limited circumstances that we are. I think definitely life will be more beautiful. And that is the best way of, I think, paying our tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. Good evening, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presidential remarks. I request Ashwini MP, Administrative Staff, Sheshadripuram Evening Degree College to render vote of thanks.
Good evening, one and all. I, Ashwini MP, take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks as an administrative staff of Sheshadripuram Evening Degree College for this international webinar. At the outset, I thank Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Foundation, Washington, USA, for associating with us for the international webinar. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to today's chief guest who has rendered keynote address, Dr. D. Jeevan Kumar, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for making this international webinar a grand success. I'm humbled and grateful to you. I express our sincere thanks to our theme speaker, Srimati Karuna Madam, for enlightening us with her words. Thank you very much, Madam. I express our sincere thanks to our guest of honor, Padma Shri, Dr. Prakash Baba Amte, sir, for enlightening us with his words. Thank you very much, sir. I express our wholehearted thanks to Dr. Udupi Krishna, sir, for your presidential remarks. Thank you very much, sir. In his absentia, I thank Professor C.L. Basurajaya, sir, Chairman, Governing Council, SCDC. And I thank all the office bearers and trustees of Sheshadripuram Evening Degree College. My special thanks to our beloved, vigorous, dynamic principal, Professor N.S. Satish, sir, who is the strength of our Sheshadripuram Evening Degree College. I would like to thank all the office bearers of Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Foundation, Washington, USA. I would like to thank Dharapa Konnur, convener, Nisarga Mitra, Sunil Kumarji, coordinator, IQAC, who have technically helped us to materialize this webinar. I express our gratitude to all principals, conveners, and members of Gandhi Study Center of our sister institutions and other colleges, academicians, research scholars, students, and delegates across the globe for participating in this webinar. We will ever remain grateful to our teaching and administrative staff for their support. Thank you one and all, and namaste.
Thank you, Ashwin ma'am. Once again, thank you one and all. Now we conclude the webinar.